Hello everybody, it's Peter with an I, S-T-A-W-A-R-T, and welcome to segment 14 of, I don't know, The Dark Tower, I guess?
It was weird and so wrong. Sports Center was going to be on, so they couldn't watch for too much longer. Hepatitis and Pancreas ate a few more olives and drank vino from their sports bladders. The Greek gods knew better than to eat too many olives or to drink from a dirty pig's bladder because they would get a terrible case of Pythagorea. Pythagorea is sort of like diarrhea. It causes them to poop right triangles. There are some 45-degree edges in there that can hurt pretty bad coming out. When Socrates got a case of Pythagorea, he chose to drink hemlock instead of having to go through the agony of passing a triangle. It's a lot better when your poop comes out like Plato.
Look at your ass! What?
How'd you get that book? Asked Joe, wondering if maybe Susie Lee was friends with the people who owned the Tropic of Cancer, that cool coffee shop where kids who weren't 21 could go and hang out. They played jazz every Friday night, which was sorta neat. Coffee shops like the Tropic don't do half as well as taverns, because at coffee shops, the patrons don't slug down pitchers of espresso and immediately call out for another, get in a fight because somebody bumped their elbow, and drive circles around the local schoolyard before going someplace to rut with somebody they don't know. Coffee houses have more in common with strip clubs than they do with taverns. For example, the more the patrons spend money, the more excited and nervous they get. But by the end of the evening, you can bet they're going home alone. And they'll be up all night. Oh, this book? Asked Susie Lee, buying some time to think. Oh, Her expression suggested she didn't want to go into it. And since she was cute, she didn't need to. Well, it's from the Tropic of Cancer, that one coffee place, right? Asked Joe, hoping to find something in common with her, so that they could have something to talk about. And hopefully, when they did talk, people would witness them talking and think, who's that boy talking to Susie Lee? She shook her head. Oh, sure it is. That place is cool, continued Joe, searching for a golden segue that would lead to a conversation. Joe seemed to be the only one there who didn't seem to catch on to the fact that she stole it. It was a neat book, something that everyone contributed to. It was something that didn't need to be under lock and key.
There was a general understanding of trust among the patrons and anyone else who got it. Stealing that book was a crappy thing to do, and stealing it lent as much respect to that place
as a thief who would steal a car stereo. In her mind, it was nothing, a trifle, like taking a fashion magazine from the dentist's office. But others might not see it that way. And for Susie Lee, that's what really mattered. Charles tried to think of a way to emphasize the fact that Joe was calling her a thief and pit her against the weasel, but given such short notice, he couldn't think of a charming way to orchestrate things in a way that wouldn't make him look like a dirty rat. The situation passed, and was totally forgotten by everyone after a few words and a change of subject. But Susie Lee didn't forget about it. A pungent dislike of Joe lingered in her mind. He was like a little mouse chewing on her lifeline as she watched helplessly from below. She was helpless at the time, but since the moment of her vulnerability had passed, and she had climbed to safety, she could plot and scheme and concentrate on finding ways of getting him out on that rope. She could imagine holding his little mouse body in her fist and squeezing. Joe was in the kitchen talking to Archie. Archie, who had a certain quality about him that made everyone around him feel at ease, was cracking up as Joe went on with some story. Joe actually felt like a regular person as he went on about whatever he was talking about. Perhaps that was part of Archie's magic. He made people feel good and normal and care about nothing more than having a good time. Maybe it was Archie's ability to track during a conversation, to interpret jokes, see the humor, and then have the joy to laugh that made him such a pleasure to be with. Again, this is Archie's magic. Joe didn't have much magic. When Chauncey was finished making out with the neighbor lady, he came back downstairs and watched some TV. And then he made out with Susie Lee. Go, Chauncey!
Hey Billy boy, you're the 18th son. You're the one to get it done. You're the one to get in a fight. Kiss all the girls on Saturday night. Hey Baby Sue, you're a pretty girl. Come on out, let's take a whirl. Let's go out to the bar tonight. Dance and jig till the morning light. Kentucky Jim, you're a country son. Let's go make a whiskey run. Meet me out at the Ridge tonight. We'll drive our truck till the morning light.
Chapter 14.
Frank came strolling up the path to the house. It was just a few shades shy of being nighttime, and he was beginning to wish he had a pair of pants on instead of shorts. He didn't care a great deal about keeping warm. He didn't care a great deal about anything as long as she wasn't by his side. Again, we're talking about the cup he saw at the movies. The cartoon cup. She doesn't happen to be real. He'd asked the lady at the ticket booth, "What city is that one commercial? The one with the attractive cup made in? And do you know what the cup's name is?" She had looked at him blankly for a moment. She was trained to give two answers. One answer was to quote ticket prices, and the other answer was to point in the direction of the marquee, listing movie times and ticket prices. She didn't know how to apply this question to either of the two answers she was trained to give. She was boggled. The only thing that could have caught her more off guard was if she noticed that her watch was fast and her late husband was coming to get her. Frank watched the ground ahead of him as he walked up the horn, so he didn't step on a rake or trip over anything he left out during the day. "Oh!" yelped Frank. "It's you!" "Hey, Frank!" said Potty Mouth from near the side of the house, in the vicinity of the place he had last seen him hours ago. He came out from the bushes, all fresh and energetic, and pretending that being back there wasn't at all abnormal. It looked suspicious, like he'd almost been caught masturbating to the moon. Little note. Now, masturbating means dreaming, kids. Remember that. It means dreaming. And you dream about things you enjoy, like clowns and circus ponies. And in the text, Frank assumed that Potty Mouth was looking at the moon, dreaming about things like clowns and circus ponies. But remember, kids, don't go around telling people that you masturbate. And don't go around telling kids at school that your older brother rolls around at night masturbating. And mention nothing about clowns and or circus ponies. "What are you doing?" asked Frank. "Oh, nothing," he replied quickly. Frank gave him a strange look. "Wow, so," Potty Mouth bobbed his head. He decided he'd better not get too chummy and risk losing his position as a leader, and he thought about barking at Frank about something. After all, there's no quicker way of being demoted than being caught fantasizing about clowns and circus ponies. Potty Mouth felt he couldn't admit why he was truly out there, and that he was afraid to be in the house alone, because he imagined Frank teasing and ribbing him about it to no end. It was an impossible situation, so he just abstained from saying anything, and just shook his head and grumbled. They headed inside and turned on the television.